What's up, guys? Welcome to Blue Presents a podcast where I discuss all things music and how it affects my life. And today I'm talking with Erin and Brian of the band Brother, or as they like to pronounce it, Brother. And we talk about what it is to come back after 10 years of being apart, and about their brand new debut record, Glorious Retribution, which is available on all streaming media platforms, Spotify, iTunes, all that. Anywhere you can find it, it's there and available. And this was a fun podcast for me to find out what it took them to write this record. And you'll definitely hear me talk about, definitely from a musician perspective, the maturity that was in this record. So sit back, listen, and I hope you guys really, really enjoyed this episode. Thank you, guys. What's up, guys? I am joined by Erin and Brian of Brother, if I said that correctly, guys. Bro. What's going on?
Life's good, man.
Life is peachy.
You keep waking up. It's awesome.
Nothing wrong with that, guys. So I'm going to start off with my cheesy-ass question of the show, which is top 5 artists or top 5 records for you?
Oh, do we get to pick which one we answer? Or?
I mean, you can answer. You can answer whichever one you want to answer. But my suggestion is that you probably want to focus on whatever you're listening to now, because for me, that list always changes.
Right. Music's so fluid, so dynamic.
I've never had like an iPod or anything, so I'm pretty stuck like on where I was in like 2006.
Just rocking that System of a Down double album.
System of a Down,
exactly.
Negative, Pantera, MF Doom.
Nothing wrong with that.
Still rocking the Buckethead, Yngwie, Slayer. I got them. It's out of order, but let's let you go since I'm
go
sure
ahead,
you
Brian,
actually
hit
have
it.
an order.
These days, let's see. Kublai Khan just put out a new record, and that is insane. Knock Loose, they did a record a few months ago. It's back to back, just bangers. But like all time stuff, Lamb of God's got some heavy hitters for me. Total album wise, you don't got to skip a single song on Sacrament, on Wrath.
That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
That's one of those records that I remember in high school, and you just hear that.
It's just man.
That the guitar tone on that record is so uncanny. When you hear it, you know it's a Lamb of God record for real.
I listened to Redneck enough where I was fucking playing it like within like a week of that shit. You know, and I was just like, I gotta know.
Just by ear.
I gotta know how it goes.
Is it wrong that when I first heard that song Redneck, I was like, they're going white supremacists? What's going on here?
He was shaved head and everything.
Yeah,
right?
It was a little
see the video
scary
until like 10 years after.
Yeah, no,
really?
Like I don't know.
I saw it right away, and I was just like, I know Randy better than that. I know he's not going that direction.
Very progressive dude.
Well, I will say the Knock Loose record is fucking amazing.
It's so good.
My only issue
so much energy.
My only issue with it, I really like it, but the vocals sometimes can kind of get a bit daunting sometimes listening to it. But the riffs are so heavy. It's just like it's one of those records that if you're pissed off, that's the perfect record to listen to right now.
Those guys got so much energy, and I think their singer's name is Brian too. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian Garris, but that kid's just got so much energy. Like I'm listening to it, I'm like tired. I'm like, what?
That's a lot.
But more albums though, like Mastodon's Leviathan record. Such a cool idea for a record, and like same thing. You just listen to it start to finish. You don't got to skip a single track. And then out of the metal genre, Queens of the Stone Age Song for the Deaf is just front to back, like just musical journey. I love. And then onto anything MF Doom's done, Danger Doom, that album.
Yeah.
I just showed my nephew, who's a hip hop artist, MF Doom, and it blew his mind.
The guy
because he's never heard that
enigma,
rapping
dude.
over jazz music and stuff like that. The stuff that he does is pretty unique. So basically, the gist of my podcast is the journey to music. So to kind of get started, we start with Erin first. How did it start for you? How did you know that you wanted to get into playing guitar?
One of my top albums would have been Toxicity. And the first time I heard Chop Suey, I was like, what is this shit? I hated it. I was like, this is terrible. But then I listened a little more, and then I saw the video for Toxicity, and you just had this fucking psycho-looking dude rocking out, wearing a hockey jersey. He just didn't give a shit. And I was just like, I want to do that. real bad. I want to do that.
And not to lie, I think that record is 10 years before its time. Like it is so advanced. There's very few records I feel that that don't even belong in that era, and now people are starting to do. And I feel like System of a Down's Toxicity is that record. It was way before its time, and nobody was ready for it.
I'll give you that.
It's a really strange thing about them because, like, for years I was just like, oh, they're so eclectic, like it's so cool. And then somebody showed me some Mike Patton stuff, and honestly, like, they've got it. That's got to be a huge influence for them because, like, that whole Mr. Bungle thing, like the way that he goes from just like genre to genre, almost like seamlessly. Like he's not worried about doing the transfer for you. He's like doing it for himself.
Right.
It's awesome. But like that's where I decided. I was just like, yeah, I want to do that. Give me some of that, please.
Mashed potatoes. Yeah. All right, Brian, go ahead for me, man.
Oh man, my mom raised me on disco. It was like
I don't mean to laugh.
It was a big closeted thing for me for a long time.
No.
Where I was just like, I wouldn't tell anybody I'd listen to disco. Now I'm like, fucking disco's awesome.
Yeah.
But
disco lives.
But anyway, so I like listening to music. It was easy to listen to. My dad was more, classic rock, and you hear that everywhere. And it was just it was like vanilla to me. It's just whatever. Now I have a really deep appreciation for it. But I remember the kids I was hanging out with. One of them was listening to the Slipknot, their second album, Iowa, on a field trip, and I put one of his earbuds in, which is gross, but
now that when you look at it, all the
now
diseases
you're brothers,
you can get,
you are brothers,
and it blew my mind. I was like, "What is this?" Once I found out who they were and what they were doing, like that was a whole different story. But as far as musically, that got me into rock and roll and then into metal and stuff like that. And I remember I was listening to a Hatebreed song with my brother and my neighbor in our basement. It was Doomsayer, and the last 30 seconds of that song was just this breakdown kind of thing. And we just were like moshing around in the basement, being idiot teenagers. And somebody accidentally pushed somebody into the light switch, and we just started moshing in the dark. Somebody went through a wall. I don't know. It was, nuts.
Gonna say, you were pretty good at being an idiot teenager.
I was very good. I'm a professional idiot teenager. So that breakdown in that moment, that's what I remember vividly saying, I want to do this. I want to create stuff like this. I want to make this. I want to invoke this feeling right now in other people. I want people to just go, yeah, like just get real, like rid themselves, just.
And I recently just saw a video of you performing. And yeah, bro, you definitely invoke that.
Oh man,
let's get fucking nuts kind of deal.
People paid to see a show.
Hey man, I mean, and that's how I feel as a vocalist when you're playing a show. Your job is not only just to sit there and look good and write, lyrics, but it's also to like get people hyped. Saying
for sure.
you're the voice and
I'll
the
say
hideous face of the band.
I'll say it.
If
you're not having fun, I'm not having fun.
You can't just sing the Tasty Jam. You must become the Tasty Jam.
Yeah, no matter the flavor,
Okay,
yeah.
no matter the flavor.
No matter the flavor.
All right, guys. So, as I understand, Brother or Brother wasn't the original name of the band, and is actually the actual name of your debut record, Glorious Retribution, available on all streaming medias. Why the name change? I have an idea, but I want to hear from you guys why the name change.
I can tackle this one if you want.
I
I pushed for it hard. I saw it in a meme. That's what happened. I saw it in a meme. I was just like, I like that, and we'd come back together after 10 years of being apart and all sorts of different stuff happening with each respective member. So to me, after initially it was sort of a joke that I fell in love with, and then I realized that it meant a little bit more than that to me, because essentially this is the original lineup. We're brothers in this music shit, that shit is really important to me, that we have that camaraderie that keeps us together, brought us back together.
For sure. We've been through it with each other through weddings and deaths and just best and worst moments of each other's lives, and you're like, oh, that's what family is. So it made sense. I didn't even argue. I know it was like a half-assed like joke.
Mike argued. Yeah.
I didn't argue though. I was like,
Yeah.
great, perfect. That makes sense because I tell these guys all the time that I love them, whether they take it seriously or not. Like, yeah, I say it so much now that it's lost its punch, but
I still got the punch.
I mean,
I'll give it
that's a serious answer to probably a corny ass question, which I think is amazing. To be honest with you, I thought it was because you guys didn't want to be religiously associated. Glorious Retribution. When you hear something like that, my first thought was, this has got to be a Christian band. If I heard that,
you know where Glorious Retribution came from?
Yeah, where'd that come from? Go ahead.
That came from I was watching Pulp Fiction, and I was inspired by the Ezekiel 25:17.
I didn't think about that.
So that's
you're
kind of on the right. I mean, it's not a real Bible passage, but
exactly.
like I got inspired by that scene, and I was just like, oh man, the path of the righteous man, huh? Like,
do you like the cheeseburger?
Yeah, right. That whole scene. Yep.
Exactly.
So that's
a good cheeseburger. Yes, it is. Oh wow.
So,
no, see,
nail on the head there. I mean, look, it wasn't intentionally like religiously aligned, but it was. I don't know, kind of like an offshoot of just a made up, Bible passage. So
no, I think
you're
that's
not wrong. The Bible's good at using big words.
I never thought about that, honestly. Like, for some reason, like, I knew that.
Yeah.
Well,
I never thought about it as a biblical thing, but now that I hear it back, I'm just like, I probably thought that.
For sure.
No offense, it seems like you guys would be playing at like some Baptist convention, with the name like Glorious, Retribution.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I'm sure some band like
Us and Faith Plus One.
Oh,
there you go.
Oh my god, South Park reference. That's awesome.
Fantastic.
So speaking about your debut record, Glorious Retribution, available on all streaming sites.
For free on most of them.
This record, in my opinion, I think has a lot of heavy and melodic tones all over the record.
Nice and heavy.
How did the production and the writing for this record go? By the way, my favorite song is Ashes.
All right.
Yeah,
They're nice.
My favorite
I like
song.
that.
My favorite song. So if you guys could talk a little bit of putting it together, obviously you guys explained the name, 10 years coming back together and being a band. So obviously I'm taking a guess the production of this record meant a lot to you guys.
A lot of those songs are older songs. They're songs from like when we first were doing this, and then we got back together and wrote a couple more, and we're just like, how long are we going to sit on this before we actually, make a...
And I'm not going to lie, that's something I did figure out. There is definitely, there's a mature tone to the record. It's not in a bad way. It just sounds like there was thought put into it, which you don't get that a lot when you talk about records.
There were changes made before and into the studio that made the songs like that, because there were parts that were... vocally
lacking,
but they were kind of juvenile.
They needed a little bit more shape than they had at the time.
Like, you could tell that we were just a garage band when we wrote those songs.
And it was great because the producer that we worked with was excellent. I mean,
I love that guy.
He's a great guy.
You can name drop that producer now.
Nick Z sent me.
Nick Z sent us, man. That's
From
what
Out of
it
Phase
was.
Studios.
From
Nick
Out of
Z.
Phase Studios represent.
Oh my gosh.
He did us right, man, because I mean, not for nothing, but like he listened to us on a severe level. Like there was one of my favorite pieces that like I've ever written personally. It's the instrumental piece on the album was initially, honestly, to me, I wouldn't have seen it because I was so caught up in the fact that like, oh, okay, well, like I did this chord structure this way on purpose and blah blah blah. But realistically, it lacked a lot of layers. So when we actually finally got to play these things for him, he cut a couple songs. He liked a bunch of songs, but that was one of the ones that he was like, "Yeah, no, you got to get rid of it." And like we and mostly me kind of refused. I was just like,
got in your feelings about it a little
not
bit.
Not happening, kid.
Yeah.
It's on the album, like it or not. And
So,
then he just like
He wanted me to add words to it.
he went and he like, but he went to town on it, man. He showed us the way on that one. Like he really polished it up. And
I love that song.
as resistant as I was to it at first, it was really like that was a big humbling learning